I've heard you talk a little bit about just on other podcasts or things about a predator mindset.
Yeah,
Could
absolutely.
you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. These Gene Zanetti, who has done a lot of work within wrestling, to kind of talks about it. So I kind of adopted it from him. So predator mindset, in the way that he kind of talks about is that if you want to identify what a predator animal is, it's eyes in front, likes to hunt, right? That you need to have that binocular vision, front of your mind, be focused on that. And so a little bit less of like needing to be a tough guy or needing to be, this or that kind of stuff. But like predator animals, they're focused on the moment, right? They're focused on the 6 feet in front of them. And so if we can kind of be a little bit more like task focused, simplify things in a way that kind of help you to just kind of be focused going forward, that's where we want you to be. And so that's the opposite of, he kind of talks about prey mindset, right? Eyes on the side, likes to hide. Like animals that are prey animals, from squirrels up to horses, physically, like their eyes are set on the side of their head to kind of be able to detect threats in their environment, right? So even these big, powerful animals like horses, if you stand directly in front of a horse, it freaks out, right? Like it can't see directly in front of itself.
Wow.
And so there's all these things that we can kind of get stuck on the side, right? Rankings and exposure and what's going on and what do my teammates think, or what are coaches thinking, and that kind of stuff. And the more we can kind of get locked in on just being in the present, being in the moment, how do I simplify things in terms of being, for my wrestlers, it's just kind of being position to position. For my baseball guys, it's playing pitch to pitch, right? Like, how can I just kind of be able to kind of narrow down that focus to this moment,
How practically does that look? So like, like when you're talking with an individual and you explain that to them, because I mean, it makes sense. So it's, how do you put that into practice, or how do you get their mind to be that way?
Yeah, so like, it really there's kind of 2 key parts, right? It's kind of like awareness and regulation, right? How do we have really good awareness about where I'm at mentally? And so I talk about kind of these zones of performance. We can have like too little energy, and that becomes a problem. I call it kind of the gray zone, right? We can have too much energy, and that becomes a problem. That could be frustration. That could be anger. That could be anxiety. That could be stress. That kind of stuff. And I call that the red zone, right? Kind of running too hot, too in the red, and we need to be in the green zone, right? And so sometimes the green is optimal energy, optimal performance, and that can look different, right? That's going to look different from a middle linebacker to a starting pitcher to a hitter to my wrestlers, right? And so how do you have that awareness? Like, what does it look like for me when I'm at my best? And then how do we, get you there? So how do we get you there in terms of breathing techniques, muscle relaxation, visualization and imagery, our own self-talk? What do we say? And so how do we build up this suite of skills to kind of build that mental game plan for you? And so how do we break that down for those athletes in terms of throwing a lot of skills at them, right? There's a lot of different things out there that we can do. And then how do we tailor it to what, is going to help them to be the best they can be?
Yeah. In your opinion and your experience, I guess, is it easier to bring someone from a red zone to a green, or from a gray zone to a green?
I think we have a lot more tools from red to green, right?
Okay.
Like, so those guys who can be really fiery, really, really hyped up, and kind of just bring in a little bit of that edge,
reel it in a little.
Because if we think about gray to green, like that's a little bit more about things like goal setting and motivation and your why, right? And so certainly can help athletes kind of dial into that why. If that why is not that strong, that's a little bit more challenging, right?
Yes.
Or if the why belongs to somebody else, right? It's mom and dad want this why, or people expect this of me, or those kind of things. Needing to kind of dial into that why. It's a little bit more tricky and a little bit more kind of existential and philosophical, kind of going gray to green in a lot of ways. Right?
Is that easy to pick out when you're talking with someone on, like, or if it's someone else's why these these kids are playing? Is that pretty, like, do you does that stick out like a sore thumb for you when you talk with them?
Two questions that I asked first session, with everybody. One is why do you do what you do, right? Like, why why baseball? Why wrestling? Why football? Why your sport, right? Because I really want to see, like, it's a hard question, and it's like, wait a minute, I don't often take a step back and say,
think about that.
What do I love about it? What do I enjoy about it? And then the other question that I love asking is about strengths, because I think for a lot of athletes, they think that we're only going to talk about the things that aren't working, right? That it's kind of like this, like, kind of disease model. Something's wrong with you that we're going to fix it, as opposed to you don't have to be sick to get better, right? Like we can build skills through this process, through that. So being able to kind of isolate, like, what do you think are your strengths? What are the things you do well? What are the things you're good at? Because we're going to use those too, right? Like that we're going to build on those things to help you be the best that you can be too, as well as help you deal with things that are challenging or difficult or hard.
And based on those answers, you have a real good idea of where they're at and what direction you need to take with them.
Absolutely, right. It really gives me a good insight of like, all right, like what makes them tick a little bit, right? Because that can be a really, really long conversation, right? Of the whys and dialing into that and hearing the stories around it and that kind of stuff. It can be really fun.
Would you say those are two great questions for even like coaches to ask their players, even though they're not necessarily as equipped to help in the areas as you may be after you get that response, but just to know where the player would be.
And I tell coaches this all the time, like, you're already in the mindset game, right? Like whether you chose
you
chose that, whether you consciously, like whether you were more of an X's and O's guy, that kind of stuff, you're already in mindset and building culture and that kind of stuff. So my role is like, how do I support, So I think it's a great question to ask, being like, kind of have some of those individual one-on-one meetings that, may throw some of those athletes off, but like, wow, we can get a really rich discussion from like, all right, why do you do it? Or like, what do you feel your strengths are? What are the things you're doing well? Like what's been going well this off season, or what's been going well in terms of, in season, how things are going, right?
Yeah.
Like those are great questions to ask.
If you enjoyed that clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the full podcast, click right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this content valuable.